Hey guys, Chief Fruity here, and in this video I'm going to show you guys the behind the scenes of Solitude. Pretty much the sound design and everything that has gone into producing the song. As you can see, there's a lot of envelopes down here controlling stuff. So let's just go right into this. I'm not going to be playing any of the main mix of like the whole song. Reason being is because this project is very laggy too, similar to Dark Knight's Part 3. In Dark Knight's Part 3 I actually had to cut a lot of stuff down. And this one I didn't mess with anything, it's just I won't be playing the whole song. I'm just going into each individual element so it doesn't get all glitchy and lag out. But if there's a little bit glitch, that's why. Because running recording software and FL Studio can use a lot of stuff. Okay, so in the beginning here I have this little piano riff. A thing that helped to make this piano riff realistic is messing with the velocity here. As you can see, I pretty much randomized the velocity for all the notes down here. And the reason why is it makes it sound a lot more realistic. Because with this piano, I really want this piano to sound realistic, even though it's just a FL keys piano. So I'll bring it down a little bit. So that sounds pretty real, and what I did was I actually made my own here. So these are the settings I did. I didn't use one of the presets. I started from the default one, and then I made it to whatever these settings are. So if you want this, just copy all these settings. I don't know what the default is for FL keys, but this is what I did to it. And I put this to track 24, where there is a reverb on it. As you can see, I didn't mess with the low cut because I actually wanted it to have the reverb on the lows. And I ran it through this EQ. And yes, this is a pretty technical EQ here. The reason why is because with the reverb, there was some weird stuff going on with these frequencies around here, like exactly right here and here. I just had to cut those out because there's just like ringing sounds. So if I disable this EQ, it sounds like this. And with it, it just sounds a little bit more natural, softening up the highs a little bit. So that's the piano playing there. Then I have these little bell things. This is just kind of like an ambient track. It's not doing a whole lot. It's a bell preset. I don't remember doing anything to the preset. But anyway, it's pretty simple. You can just see some waves, the volume's decreasing, and they're going through each other. So yeah, it's a preset. I'm not going to go into this too much, but I will go with what I did to it. So I put on some delay. And with this, where'd it go? Over here in the bell. With this delay, I'm running it through 3 different delays at once. So you can go up to 8, which gets pretty crazy. But for the first 3, I have the first one on Pong, and then the second 2 on normal. And they're at different volume levels. The first one's at a higher level, and the other ones are at lower, as you can see with the volume down here. Also, the output and the pan changes around with across all 3. It decreases, and the reason why is I just wanted different settings, so different kinds of delays going all at once, so they're not like overlapping each time. They're all hitting differently to really make the sound more ambient there. And I have a little stereo enhancer for automation, so it can have different volumes different times in the song. And then limiters for side chaining, and they actually are limiting, but since this gets so far from the limiter, like, it doesn't really matter because limiting is up here, so I have to do this, and it's not even near there, so like it doesn't matter. And I sidechained this, or I routed it through my reverb return, which is putting on this reverb, and this reverb, a lot of different types. I didn't want to just do run reverb plugin because when you run it through, this is the original. I put on some reverb here, a lot of diffusion pretty much. And then with these, there is some diffusion, but not quite as much. A lot of wetness, and here again with a lot of wetness. As you can see, it's hardly coming in through there at all. But it's still going in, just a tiny bit. So that's the ambient track. And then as it goes into this little intro verse before the rise, I have a bass line. And this is actually the same bass sample I used in Dark Nights. I just mixed it differently. So it's pretty simple. It's just in here, bass sample through the Direct Wave plugin. This is on track 20, where I put it through this EQ. The reason why I'm boosting the mids here is because I want to get that slap out a little bit more, so it's not just a sub, so it actually has something interesting going on. And I put this through a limiter for sidechaining, a reverb to get it to reverb, and then this EQ's for automation. It's either for automation purposes or just to see how the bands look at the end, because I like to monitor that. And I cut out all the treble here and boosted the lows and mids here a little bit. And I put this bass through the delay return, which is just a single delay plugin. Like, this is default settings for the delay bank. So that's that first bass, and here I'm running it with a sub bass as well. So the sub is pretty simple. It's just a sub bass, yeah, with side chains. Yeah, not much to it. Just a sub bass. Here I have intro chords. So these are the chords for the intro. That's why I titled them intro chords. They're also going on the intro piano track because I have a different piano playing in the drop as opposed to the intro for different mixes, because in the drop I actually didn't want it to be as loud, so I just made a separate track. So on this piano, reverb, limiter for sidechaining, this same EQ. Actually I already went through this. Yeah, I already went through this. This is the same track. It says this, and now it's playing the chords. Okay, so it's the same piano. Already did that. Down here I have the kick. So I'll show you guys how I mix this kick, because it has a lot of punch to this kick. And achieving that punch was not in here. It was on track 1. Achieving that punch was this EQ is doing automations. This EQ. Okay. As you can see, this isn't very drastic changes. Like, it's just very little stuff is going on in here. Just removing the lows, and I have this treble boosted. And the reason why I wanted to boost that treble is to get that slap to punch out. Because a lot of times, like when I was first mixing kicks, like a long time ago, the thing that I would do would be like, oh, when you have a kick, you're supposed to boost the bass. That's just what you're supposed to do. But like for this kick, I actually ended up taking out the lows because I liked the slap more. I didn't want it to be a super boomy kick because I have like a sub bass and a 4-string and even a filthy bass here, and those kind of make up for a lot of the low end here on the master, like through this EQ. And then I wanted to really get those highs out so you can hear the kick and not necessarily so it gets lost in the mix. So it doesn't boost it very much. Just that little bit. And then another thing I did to help pop it out was put on a flangus. So this is basically just like a flanger. So if I disable this, it sounds like this. And with it, and then without the EQ. But a lot of how to get the kick to pop like that, because you can see when I was removing and putting back in those effects, it didn't change it too much. Subtle changes, but not too much. But most of what it is was sidechaining everything to the kick a lot. So just like duck everything to the kick quite a bit, and also getting the kick a good mix for loudness, because you do want it to punch. So mainly achieving that is also by ducking everything to the kick really well. So that's what I did in this song, and it worked out pretty well. I would play the main mix for you in the drop right now, but I can't because it would probably lag out. But you can go listen to the song. Link in the description. Okay, so that's the kick. The main lead for this little verse section here are these strings, which aren't strings. I don't know why I call them strings, probably because it was going to be a string, then it just ended up being a pluck. So, yeah. This is on 36. So what I did for this pluck was pretty simple. Just turn down the pluck, and you get a nice pluck. And I put up 3 voices of unison to make it more interesting, so it's not like this. And I put on a little bit of prism to get it a little interesting. Didn't really mess with anything else. So like I said, that was on track 36, where I put on this EQ, which isn't really doing anything because it's hardly any bands here, but it's removing that subtlety of lows and a subtlety of highs. And then this EQ, removing the bass / low mid. And then here I'm removing lows and boosting a little bit of mids. And then I have limiters for sidechaining. And then this is for some reason mapped to the intro piano. I don't know why. There's probably a purpose to that, but I don't know why. Okay, then I have this noise here. Sidechain to the kick. So pretty simple. I actually made this noise just with 3x OSC. Like, I actually made it in this project too. Like, just go to 3x OSC and then turn everything to noise. And there you go. And I just made a recording of that. And then I did a pitch shift so it decreases in pitch, and then I put up the out so it decreases in volume without needing an automation, because you can make those changes pretty easily in here. It did have to be normalized because when I recorded it, it wasn't very loud. So I just normalized it to bring that out. That's pretty much it for the verse there. And then these are reverb clips, because for when it goes to this chord, that chord right there, the augmented chord, it actually sounded really weird with the reverb, so I cut it for the piano. Just for that little bit, and then it comes back in. For the rise here, I'm bringing in this riser. This is the sub riser, which is actually rising with the riser. And the reason why I did this is it kind of adds more intensity when the bass is rising rather than just the highs rising and the bass staying the same. And then this is the main riser, which it's a really simple sound. Like, most of the sound design for Solitude I have here is really simple. There's a little bit of vibrato on it, 2 voices of unison, some reverb. Anything else? Looks like that's all of it. Just some vibrato and some reverb in unison. Map to track 19, where I put on this EQ, boosting the highs, because I really want those highs to come out. A limiter for sidechaining, chorus, and reverb. And then in this EQ, I actually cut out all the highs. I don't know why. Like, it kind of seems like it defeats the purpose to boost the highs here and cut them out here, but that's what I did. And then this is the volume fading in, and I actually have the volume coming back down, because with the rise it all builds up, and then the filter for the kick and the snare come down. And why I did is, like, I just kind of liked that. It's like it coming up and then coming down and then dropping. So it's like it rises and then actually falls and then rises again with a little fill here that I have. This little fill. And then it drops. So for the pluck here, it actually changes melody to this. To get it a little bit more engaging for the rise here. And then it drops. And I have a reverse symbol here. Another thing to mention is the master volume actually decreases for the rise. Reason being, so nothing's clipping, because it gets pretty loud when everything's rising. So I dropped down the master volume. It also helps because then the drop hits a little bit harder when you take out the master volume. Just actually took it out a lot, but normally you wouldn't have to drop it down this much. Okay, now to the drop. I have this drop bass, which is like the heavy bass of the whole song. So this is the EQ I have. I'm going to put it on some reverb and limiters for sidechaining, and I took out all the treble here. And this is going to the delay return, where it's going through a little bit of delay. And I hear, as you can see, the sub bass doesn't start at the very beginning for here and here. And the reason why is because I wanted the kick to pop out for the 1, and it does. Yeah, I can't play it because it gets laggy. But the kick pops out more because when the sub was here, I noticed the kick wasn't popping as much because it had to be sidechained more. And with this bass here, this bass is taking up a lot of mass around, around this area, which I actually have cut on this master. But like around that area, that's where a lot of the bass is. This is in here, like sub, right here, which is like the lowest I have here. And the kick is in that spot too. So by cutting this, the kick can play and then the sub comes on. And I actually have it come on the second note because I could do it here, but that might sound a little bit weird. So I wanted it to be on the second note where it comes in. I did that again over here because I wanted the same effect. But yeah, this is just the same sub bass. Nothing really too interesting there. And I have the bells for some ambience. I have the piano playing. This piano is actually more dry. It has no reverb at all. And I kind of wanted it to be up front, just kind of like not really like an ambient thing, kind of something that still adds to the lead. It's going through this EQs to remove that one frequency that for some reason sounded really weird. And then here are the chords. Playing through the same piano with no reverb. And then this piano, like I said, this is a layer with the lead. And this is the main lead for Solitude. And this is actually 2 octaves at once to kind of get it more intense. But as you can tell, that doesn't sound quite right. And that is because that lead is layered with strings. And the piano up here. So all 3 of these go together to make the Solitude lead. So it's, hopefully I can play these. And then these are volume clips to kind of cut it, kind of pump it a little bit more for the fill here, so I didn't have to sidechain it to the fill. So I did ducking right there. And I think like the leads turned out pretty well. I'll go into this one. This is really the only one to go into because this one is just a piano sample. These are just a string sample with some reverb. But this is really where most of the meat is. So I remember making this patch because I made this patch from scratch. Actually, it took me a really long time because I wanted to make something that's interesting, like something that doesn't suck, but still not like overly complicated. Something that's still simple, that would fit in this song. And I think this actually ended up doing that just fine. So I put on a prism on the down arrow, and that basically just means that the prism would be going down instead of up or flat. And I put on some vibrato, some unison with the what is this? The pitch down. And then some phasers. Very subtle phasers. 9 voices of chorus. And this is just for part A. I took out the filter a tiny bit because I didn't want there to be too many high tones like this. So I just softened those a little bit. And then part B, I have the prism going the other way on flat. Let's see what I have here. So in the envelope, this is the pitch vibrato depth. So the vibrato doesn't start right away for each note. reason why I did that was because I didn't want it to start with vibrato like this. I wanted it to fade into the vibrato. Here I have some harmonic level. Very subtle changes there. The phaser shape is flat. I already showed you vibrato. And that's pretty much that. Inside of this patch. So now let's take off all the effects on track 26. And it sounds like this. And then with the effects, I'll add them in. So I have an EQ here. And this EQ is boosting the highs, which you'd want to do for a sound like this. And I have some of the lows boosted to give it more of a foundation. Put on a reverb, very subtle reverb, because this is the lead. I didn't want to drown it in reverb, but I didn't want it to sound flat, like this. It has the delay on it, because it's mapped to the delay return. If I mute this, that's pretty flat, so I want it to have some kind of tail. Put on some chorus with 0 depth, a little EQ here, a flanger, this effects with another flanger inside of the effector, a compressor, a limiter, and a stereo enhancer. And the limiter is for side chaining, it's not actually doing any limiting. Just the plugin. And that's the lead there. And I'm just playing this pattern with 2 octaves going at once. And it's layered with all the other sounds I showed you. Then for the drums. So for these hi-hats, I didn't do too much with them. I just had all these hats closed, intro, and open. And they're just panned off a little bit, cut the lows, put on some reverb, and mapped them to the reverb and delay returns. Because I noticed that for a song with this style, I liked having the delay on the hi-hats. It kind of gets them to be a little more ambient rather than in your face, which I really like for a hi-hat. Because for a song like this, and especially with how I mixed it, the kick and snare are really what's in your face, and the hi-hats are kind of ambient. They're not playing a big role in this song. Like for example, my song Dark Nights Part 3, The Journey, the hi-hats are playing much more of a role in that song than they are in this song. So I put delay on these just to give them a little more ambient, give them more space. And then here I have this bass line. This is the heavier bass. And this bass is not really heard very much, it's kind of just there. I put on this EQ, to cut the treble, because I didn't really want it to be heard like this. I wanted that to be cut. I put it through a Vocodex here, and another EQ, and I boosted the lows. And this bass is a Harmor patch, with the lows the pitch is all the way down. Some prism, some harmonizers, and some unison going together with this Vocodex I showed you really makes a nice bass. But I cut all the highs, so you can't really hear it as much. So if I cut out the EQ, it sounds pretty nice. So what else do I have? Oh yeah, I have these plugs. So these are actually being layered with the lead as well. And on these plugs there's reverb, this EQ, limiter for side chaining. You can see there's a lot of side chaining going on. I'm just going to do the reverb return. And then for the second half of the drop, it's pretty much the same, just the progression is in the melody. For the verse, let's see, there's not too much going on in the verse. In the verse, I actually have the lead for the drop coming through. But it has a lot more delay, because I cloned it and put it through this is the lead in the drop, and this is the intro lead, which is actually the verse lead, which I probably should rename that. But it's going through the delay. And you can see I copied the effects over pretty much exactly, except it didn't need as many side chains, so that's why there's 2 open channels here. But the effects are pretty much the same. and it's playing 2 octaves again, but I have the pluck fade in not just about like 30%. And this is being layered with the plucks down here to make this sound. So I already showed you all the sound design for that pretty much, so it's kind of just like we're getting us work together. And the second drop is pretty much the exact same production wise. I have not gone into any of the snares yet, so I'm going to do that and then go into mastering. Okay, so for the snare here, put this on track 5. I have this EQ going. You can see I'm popping that little bit of low there, and the reason why is because you really want to pop that low for EDM snares. Like, it sounds pretty bad if you don't. You can see it does make a difference. Then it's also going through this EQ, which I have just for monitoring, and then a reverb. And I boost some highs down here as well. So processing the snare is really just making sure you get that band right there. That's really the main thing you want to get. So I'll go into mastering now. So on my master here, I have a stereo enhancer to begin with, boosting the volume because the overall mix volume here was pretty low. So I had a stereo enhancer just to boost that a little bit. And I have a stereo shaper here, boosting these in the middle. And yeah, just kind of boost those up because I think they're down here, so I put them up a little bit. I have a pretty squeeze, which is slight compression going on here. Just a little bit of compression through the squeeze. This Maximus on multi-band compression, as you can see, it's compressing these a lot less than the highs. I really want to get the highs nice and compressed because there's a lot more of them. I have this EQ. Boosting pretty much, there's a line that's all boosted down here. The mids are down a slightly more. I boosted the bass here, but I cut the sub. The reason why I wanted to cut the sub down here is because these frequencies take up a lot of room on the master, and you can't even, and it's really hard to hear them. You really just hear these frequencies if they're like super, like you'd only be able to hear them if they're up here. You wouldn't really hear them down here. And when I took them away, you didn't really notice anything, but it set free a lot of room on the master, so I was able to push the master up a lot more. So with these bass frequencies, they weren't really being used, so I just cut them out so I could boost the master more, which is really what you want when mastering. Put it through another Maximus, which looks like this for the multi-band compression. A limiter for some compression, and another limiter for actually limiting, because there were some peaks that were coming through here, so I limited that. And I boosted the mids a little bit, and just cranked the master as much as possible before stuff started clipping. So that's pretty much the behind the scenes for Solitude. I hope you guys have enjoyed it and maybe learned a thing or two from this. Click the videos up on the screen to watch those. And I'll see you guys in next week's video. If you guys have any further questions on the behind the scenes of Solitude, I would love to hear what it is. Just comment it down below and I'll respond to it as soon as I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this week's video. I'll see you guys in next week's video. Until then, bye.